This is the Tamron 28-300 F4-7.1, an incredibly compact, lightweight, and versatile focal length that does come with a few sacrifices. Now this is one of Tamron's newer lenses, and we're going to make some comparisons to the newer 50-300, the 400, and even of course the 28-200 f2.8 to 5.6, which is a well-loved lens. Now this thing is going to have some surprises. It's a lot better performing in some aspects and maybe not so much in a few as well. So let's dive in and show you some of my favorite shots to date with this lens. And I wanted to give a quick shout out to Tamron for sending me this lens for review, but as always, they have no input on this video or what I say about it whatsoever. I also wasn't paid to make this video, so if you do appreciate that, hit that like and subscribe button and join the community. Now obviously one of the standout things about this lens is its incredible focal range. Over 10 times zoom means you're going to be able to take photos of just about everything. And that's what I really tried to do here, is just capture the incredible range. If you see a nice landscape, well, you're going to be able to fit a lot in the frame. If you want to zoom in and get the details of a bird or an animal, well, you can do that too. We'll dive into the performance here shortly, but let me know your thoughts of my initial photos down in the comments. So let's have a look at the build and features of this lens. As you can see, it's just a great size. It weighs only 1.3 pounds. It does extend as you zoom. It's pretty bare bones, but gonna be a fantastic versatile travel lens. So if you're looking for a one and done lens, or if you're looking to just buy one lens, well, this might be the one. Again, there are some sacrifices, so if you're looking for professional grade or quality, this might not be the one, but by no means does it rule out this producing professional results. So let's have a look at the build and features. Again, here it's the typical bare bones that we're used to these days, the same quality and the same feel and character of all the other ones in the lineup. All we've got is a little lock switch to help with creep, which it doesn't anyways in my experience. And other than that, we've got just one customizable focus hold button here, and you can use that with this little USB to connect to your phone on the go, or Tamron's utility software on your computer to change this to make it basically an automatic manual focus switch. And you can also do things like make it rack focus or even change the direction of your zoom ring, stuff like that. So it's kind of neat, but that's pretty much it in terms of the build. At the front, you're gonna find a nice big grippy zoom ring here from 300 all the way down to 28 millimeters very quickly, which is a nice short throw. And on the back here, you've got a little manual focus ring that you won't be using very much because the autofocus on this lens is just fantastic. Another built-in feature that you won't see advertised except for this little VC here is its vibration compensation. So this lens is image stabilized and it does a fantastic job in my opinion. Now, looking at the front, we've got 67 millimeter filter threads, the same as pretty much all of the other lenses in the lineup. It's got their patented coatings to help with ghosting and flare. On the back, yes, metal mount with a little rubber gasket. The weather sealing is consistent across them, and I've had no issues with their weather sealing, and I've put these things through some pretty nasty weather. So I'm confident at this point. I've never actually sent a Tamron lens away for warranty or repair, and it's nice to know that they do stand behind their products with a 6 or 7 year warranty, depending on where you're from. I really like that about this company, and I think they make overall just fantastic products. And that's pretty much it for the build and features. Yeah, it would have been nice to have maybe a dedicated automatic manual focus switch or a focus limiting switch maybe, but again, that adds to the cost of a lens, so I understand why they're going this route now. Maybe switch that lock switch out for a custom button so we could have two choices for this maybe in the future, but overall, no deal breakers there. The build is just what we expect. Next, let's dive into the performance of this lens. Let's start with the autofocus. I'm happy to say with their faster, newer VXD focusing motors, it is very, very good. Despite having complex glass and lots going on in there, the autofocus keeps up very, very, very well. It's incredibly fast and basically silent. I did test this thing in lower light situations as well due to the aperture constraints, and I thought it would perform not so great, but it did pretty well. Now, you're not going to compare this to something like an f2.8 or something, but no, in great light, this thing is going to perform very well. Here's a few examples of that. Here's a 50 shot sequence that I took, and I was pretty impressed seeing just a few slight misses here. Overall, with fast moving subjects moving towards you, this thing does hold up pretty well. Tamron's autofocus performance in the last few years has come a long way, and it's amazing to see this type of consistency in just about every lens that they've released in the last little bit. Once again, given the relatively slow aperture of this lens, low light scenarios are going to be a different story, but if you do find yourself in some decent light, this is the results that you can expect. A quick look at the actual focal range to see just how versatile this lens is. Now the difference between 28 and 50 is quite substantial. It may mean the difference of actually getting a decent indoor shot, and if you can't zoom with your feet, you have more to work with in the frame. So that's kind of nice. Now compared to the 28-200, of course, getting another 100 millimeters is going to make quite a significant difference, as you see here, but also that 28-50 here on the wide side is going to be pretty substantial. Now, one standout feature I love that Tamron is bringing to its lenses, and this one is included, is its minimum focus distance. At 28 millimeters, you can get incredibly close to your subjects and get some macro-like shots with their 1 to 2.8 magnification ratio. Now, it's not quite macro, but it lets you get really close up, which is really nice, and especially being able to do that on a telephoto like the 50-300 or even the 50-400 here, it just makes it a much more usable and versatile lens without having to worry about a crazy working distance. I love that feature, and I love the value that it adds to this lens. I did mention image stabilization before, and it's come a long way and does a very good job here. Hand holding at 300 millimeters is a lot better than I expected. That is pretty extreme to get out there, and in a lens this size of this price range, I don't actually know how they fit it all in there, but it works pretty darn well. This is also really going to help in those lower light situations. So next, let's dive into the image quality. Now, don't expect miracles out of this. It does cover a huge focal range, and because of that, again, you are gonna have some sacrifices in terms of image quality and the aperture performance. We've seen that, but let's dive in now and maybe pixel peep a bit to show you exactly what you're looking at in terms of optical performance. As promised, here's a look at the sharpness and optics of this lens here, starting at 28 millimeters, wide open at f4. As expected, the center of the image is nice and sharp, definitely not the sharpest I've seen, and it does okay until about halfway up the frame. As we get into the very corners, we can see that it's a less than ideal performance. I would like to see a little bit better out of an f4 lens, wide open, but it is what it is. As you can see, there is some heavy vignetting and a little bit of barrel distortion to speak of, a little bit more than I'd like to see as well, but not quite a deal breaker being what it is. Stopping down to f5.6, we can see that vignetting does improve quite a bit, and there is a little bit of sharpness that comes into the corners. Here we are down to f8 with a minor improvement once again, down to f11, and it's not really until f16 where we start to see really decently sharp corners. We can stop further down to our minimum aperture of f22 now, and overall at 28 millimeters, it's an okay performance for me. Here we are around the center of our focal range, around 150 millimeters. Now our maximum aperture is f6.3. The center of the image is quite sharp, not the sharpest again, but as we get into the corners, you can see that it is a definitely better improvement than on the wide end. Here at f6.3, I would really expect nothing less. Now stopping down further to f8, we can see a little bit of sharpness come in, and then down to f11, it's about the same. Stopping down to f16, still a completely workable image, and down to f22 where we can start to see a little bit of haziness. We can further stop down now to f36 where we definitely start to see some heavy degradation. And finally, here we are at 300 millimeters where our maximum aperture is our slowest f7.1. The center of the image is decent, and as we get into the corners, it's an okay performance. Again, I'd like to see a little bit better sharpness starting here from f7.1 with a nice big depth of field. Stopping down to f8, we can see pretty much no improvement there. Stopping down to f11 is where we start to see that vignetting dissipate a little bit and maybe a tiny bit of sharpness in the corners. Further down to f16, we can see that we've pretty much reached our maximum sharpness here. It's not overly impressive in the corners, that's for sure. Stopping down further to f22, and then all the way down to f32 here. And there is some haziness, and we can actually stop all the way down to f40 here, and we can see definitely a not so great performance overall across the board. So overall for the optical performance, there is some vignetting and definitely some distortion issues. Wide open, you're looking at barrel distortion, and as you zoom in, the further you get, we're gonna deal with some pincushion distortion. It's not the worst that I've seen, and is pretty consistent with an all-in-one lens like this. Now, when it comes to the bokeh of this lens, it's really nothing special. Of course, it does start at f4 and go to f7.1. You can get some nice compression at 300, but it's really not gonna blow your mind despite having 9 aperture blades. It does a decent job, but well, I'll let you be the judge and let me know what you think down in the comments. Flare control with this lens is decent. I did note a few obnoxious scenarios, but I was shooting basically directly into the sun, which is not advised. If you are a fan of stopping down to get some sun stars, unfortunately this lens is not going to provide some overly pleasing ones. Finally, let's touch on the value of this lens. At $899, it isn't a cheap lens, but I think it's right where it needs to be. If you're somebody looking for a one lens solution that offers a ton of versatility in terms of focal length and aren't overly concerned with lower light situations, well, this might be a perfect option. It's going to offer decent performance across the board, and you have the confidence of that amazing long Tamron warranty. If you're an amateur looking for a one and done lens, I think this is going to be a fantastic option for you. I'm going to leave it at that, guys. Let me know what you think about this lens down in the comments. If you did want to pick it up, I will drop affiliate links down in the description. Thanks so much for watching, and like always, make mistakes, be yourself, and get out there and take some more pictures. See you next time.